Ready? Okay.
Rain's got me all flustered today. All right. Good evening. I'd like to call the May 28th meeting of the Ocean Highway and Port Authority to order. If everyone will please rise for the invocation led by Commissioner Cole, followed by the pledge.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we do thank you for this day. We thank you for the many, many blessings. We thank you for this great country that we live in. We pray for our leaders of our world around. Pray, Lord, that you meet with us tonight. Give us wisdom and discernment as we make decisions for the Port Authority. I ask now that you watch over our first responders and servicemen and women abroad, and that you would make sure that everybody stays safe. All this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please look at the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Rosanna, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Moore,
Here.
Commissioner Hill. Here. Secretary Treasurer Cole.
Here.
Vice Chair Nelson.
Here.
Chair Taylor.
Here.
Thank you.
Right. So welcome to a nice group here today. We do have some public comments for non-agenda items. The first one on our list is Mr. Bob Virtue.
Even though we know accident, the last meeting, there's a lot of discussion, but there's no action. Just for in the background. This reference to later in the just. The open meeting law, Mr. Call on Saturday. For $550,000 request to move to the community federal partners. That's obviously way in excess of the number that's really moving that. And Mr. Cole at that time, so it was a 2024. Then Mr. Cole O'Pine then given a high cross. He would suggest going to town. He wouldn't vote. Sorry, and Mr. Cole would know how to do that. We know that what we want to deal with what we've done back in April 2024, and they had the price picked out factor in this not forward with knowing that the social groups prepare to deal with the current facility to the plan. If this was made for relocate the fire permits, in which case we wouldn't be here tonight discussing the issues at all. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Virtue. And we have for non-agenda items, Ms. Tammy Kosak.
Commissioner again, goes at 322 North Third. The vote is appropriate that Commissioner Cole asked for protection on our first responders. I would like to address safety tonight. On May 22nd, on Thursday, at approximately 7 a.m., 4 police cars came down Dade Street, and there was a traffic incident. There was an accident at the end of 2nd Street and Dade, in between the two residences, between a port employee vehicle and a fuel truck. It's my understanding that both drivers were issued citations. So my request is for staff to reinforce the speed limits, because on the third shift coming in and then again on the leaving, Dade Street front and second become raceways. The guys are either racing to get in to beat the clock, and then they race and they leave, and it's dangerous. And it brings me to my second part of safety, which I know we've been talking about fire suppression. in the warehouses. My question is for the existing warehouses, all of them that are on campus, what kind of inspections are performed on the sprinkler systems? How often are they inspected? Are they done quarterly? Are they done annually? Does it? So what's the frequency? How will reported and reported? Are they running tests and tagging of the gauges? In a case like this accident that happened, God forbid something more dangerous happened and that hook tank went up. They're surrounded by dozens of port employee cars and right there, and two warehouses with highly combustible materials in the middle of a historic district with wood frame structures. And just on the side, my house insurance homeowners is coming up again for renewal. Almost nobody would carry me simply because I'm so close to a warehouse, not the port per se, but the warehouse. So we really need to make sure that we are holding everybody accountable and having these inspections done by certified people and fire safety codes. One other side on that accident that happened just before the St. Michael's carpool lineup. So again, we've got mothers and grandparents and parents bringing all kids through town right on Main Street. The employees rushing to get in. If something happened right there, we'd have a bunch of more, hopefully not, but possibly fatalities in all cases. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kozak. Ted, Travis, can you all touch on the, she talked about the fire inspection, touch on that?
Okay. So yeah, so we are in the process of renewing our insurance coverage, and for that, if anyone knows, with an industrial environment like this, you get a proper inspection done. So we tested everything. We had a couple of minor instances; they've already been fixed. But everything's back up and operational as far as I'm concerned. That going to change.
All right, thank you.
I have one more follow-up. How long that the insurance once a year?
I would have to check about safety vision, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
Thank you, Ted and Travis. All right, so before we get into old business, I wanted to touch on really, I guess, our last meeting. So coming out of our last meeting, it's clear I think tensions maybe running a little bit high with some of the topics that came up, some of the decisions that were made. But I want to take a minute to remember why we're here. So this board, we were elected by the community to make decisions that impact the future of our ports and the people that we serve in our community. We've had ongoing discussions about the operating agreement, and I think we'd all agree that it has flaws. I think at one point or another we may have said that. And while this particular board may not have been the one to actually approve that agreement, it was still approved under the authority of the Ocean Highway and Port Authority. That means we have a responsibility to address its shortcomings while honoring our commitment to the community. And balancing the business side of operations with the needs of our residents, it's not easy. And it requires thoughtful, collaborative decision making. And I want to ensure that our port operator, that they understand our perspective. We're not here to create conflict. We're here to work together. And our goal should be to find opportunities to grow the business and improve conditions at the port, but we're not going to get there without open dialogue, mutual respect, and productive thinking. So I hope that this is a fresh start. We've got a new president of the port, Relay Terminals with Ted. We have a new port attorney. So I'm hoping that with open dialogue, mutual respect, the productive thinking that we're talking about, we can move forward in a positive way because it's really the only way that we're going to succeed. So I hope this meeting it was a bit better. We can have some good dialogue, but not just this meeting. I think future meetings because there's a lot of great things that we can do moving forward. So. All right, going into old business. Tab 7A. Doesn't look like we have any public comments here. The engagement agreements with Patrick Kurchowski, our former court attorney. We have the first one here, the engagement agreement for the fabric warehouse settlement. That was shared with us. You have it pulled up there. Do we have any comments or questions?
Hi, Tony. I have a question, Chairman. Did you review the Patrick's engagement letter? And
Very briefly. I don't have any comments. My understanding is that he is already handling much of it and he's going to continue. I didn't have any contractual, the terms, the hourly rate and all that. That's what we have to.
Is this the agreement that Patrick mentioned the operator was going to pay for?
Yes.
All right, so I think I want to hear directly from the operators. I don't want to find ourselves in a
Right.
situation. Is that I don't know. I'm not trying to spring on you, but is that something the operator is covering the cost of?
I think generally it's a no, but I will have to check with counsel on that and get back to you.
That was my understanding from Patrick. We had a meeting about a week or so ago, and we just went through pending items, and that was his understanding. So,
Chair, they've been paying. I've been invoicing them.
But moving forward, that's what we need to, I guess, figure out is move forward if that's something that's the operator is going to be covering the cost of. So I think there might be some misunderstandings. I do remember Patrick saying that in our last meeting. That's why I just wanted to verify that, and we haven't asked the operator directly. So
may I address?
Yeah.
You need anything more formal than just the board's request, because this has just been verbal so far, Patrick, and obviously Rosanna.
I think it's a pretty straightforward request. So, I mean, just I think Chairman, I think you know me well. So let's put a date on it. Get a clear, concise response. So, what's the date you get that resolved?
Well, I mean, we need to sign this engagement agreement tonight, really, to move forward with it. It's just going to be a matter of whether or not, because I know Spot can't focus on this because there's a conflict. So whether we pay for it or Patrick, whether we pay for it or the operator, it's got to get covered. I think by our next meeting would be fine.
Let's do by 6/4. That's 1 week from today. Close the business.
Chair, you signed a authorization, agent authorization with that in mind.
Yes, correct. Okay, so do we have any further comments? Motion or any action on this item?
Yeah, so Chairman, I believe that agent authorization did require the operator to reimburse us for those legal fees. But I think that if we're going to engage Patrick, we need to have confirmation first, that they're going to pay. So are we asking Tammy to confirm?
Well, but I think at this point, because we know Tammy can't represent us on this case, so regardless, we would need other counsel. So again, whether we're paying for Patrick's services or
But like the warehouse dispute, the only reason that we're at all party is because of the operator's, error. And we really have no obligation to do anything because we weren't even named in the proceedings at the mediation. The only way that we are a party is by the agent authorization with Rogers Towers and John and Sarah. So unless they're going to pay for it, I don't know why we would
What
engage.
you can do, I mean, the agreement itself, because the representation it's OPA's property. So that's what the agreement contemplates with Patrick, is that he's representing OPA And yes, implied in that is that OPA would pay. If you want to, if you think that there's going to be, you don't approve the agreement tonight and you approve it at your next meeting, the only concern I have is, are there going to be any things that we have to handle regarding, or that he has to handle regarding the fabric warehouse? Is that going to put anything back if you don't approve it tonight? If you choose to approve it tonight and you want to make it conditional upon being reimbursed Patrick's costs and fees by the operator, you can do that. Because this isn't an agreement in stone. It can be terminated if we don't want to pursue it any further. Or if we're, the board is saddled with the legal costs and you say that's not something we can or will do, then we just say, no, thank you, Patrick. And he'd have to get paid for what he had done up to that point. So
All right, so looking for action from the board.
A motion to approve, the letter as presented.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hill. I'll share. We have a second from Mr. Moore. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the next item is the motion for substitution. This is in relation to the property appraiser case, and this would remove Patrick as counsel of record and substitute with Tammy. What I do want to ask though, the answer to this, but I want to make sure this is not a conflict. Okay.
this is not a conflict.
Action from the board or questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Commissioner Hill. Okay, second from Commissioner Cole. All those in favor?
Aye.
The next item,
Chairman, I have a question about that. So, what is the next action on that case? Do you know?
I have not spoken with Mr. Bruce. I intend to do that and have a brief conversation just to get sort of, more familiar with it. I thought I saw some trial dates discussed for February. Let me send an email to the entire board. And later during my report, I'll talk a little bit about communication and how I'd like to handle those things. I will get back to you because I'd rather not just guess.
Yeah, so the property appraiser case, as we all know, is being handled by Gunster. And their counsel is following like the statutory guidelines, which are very structured. Once the tax rolls are certified, then the tax collector does not have discretion to continue with the statutory process of filing certificates. And it's a rolling accruing obligation each year as the tax certificates are like the tax roll is certified. And so each year we have to make sure that we are renewing, our pleadings to incorporate the current years. And not every year was treated the same in the proceedings. There are some years that were that for which tax certificates were sold. And so it's just really important to watch those calendars, and with multiple firms involved, it's kind of like parents with children. The more adults doesn't necessarily mean but more eyeballs on the kid. So I just would ask that you kind of dig in a bit more and don't necessarily assume that they're watching all of those deadlines. But they are reimbursing for our legal expenses. So just keep those separate from the general representation.
Of course.
Thank you.
all right, and then up next we have the engagement agreement for contract disputes. Yeah. Was there any other?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
This was discussed at the last meeting, and I suggested when I met with Patrick that we do something in writing and make sure that everybody had a chance to think about it. And his fee is the same rate that he charges for litigation, $350 an hour, and the board was interested in digging into the contract agreement.
don't think the operator's gonna cover this cost.
Yeah.
No. Um. But what, so did you, all right, with this agreement, is you just go through and review for any potential issues?
No,
Exactly.
so I do not know.
Well,
There are several areas of the contract over the years that Patrick has brought up. I haven't made a list. He didn't give me his list. And that the board has been disappointed with the provisions of the contract. So that's what this is, to look at the contract, but also if there are on the minds of the board, um, specific, I'm new here, so are there specific items between OPA and the operator that you want to look at with regard to, I think everybody's familiar with the contract, particularly Patrick, and, no contract is perfect, so you can always find holes. If you dig in, you can find holes. Uh, but is that what you want to do? It's not going to be as simple. That Patrick did say, it's not going to be a simple look at the contract and see what are provisions of the contract that are potentially, pitfalls or could be. That's not what this would be. This would be specific. And I would behoove you to make sure it's as specific as possible. Otherwise, it could be very expensive.
That should be like, obviously, this has no limits on it. And obviously, again, your funds are not, the legal fees budget is $40,000 a month. We're getting to the point where we will not have the extra funds to do all these additional fees. And again, the problem with this agreement is it has no limits. It has no quantities, no estimates of how much time he's going to spend or anything like that. So it's just an open-ended agreement. So I would caution you again, money's going to become an issue at some point, especially again, the legal fees are.
Can you there a conflict?
No,
well,
no,
that was my question is if there's, why wouldn't you just,
you absolutely can't. I mean, there is no, for lack of better words, animosity or competition or anything between Patrick and I on this. It was something that was discussed. The board was interested and Patrick was willing to take it on, having more familiarity so he could get up to speed faster, and hit the ground running. But in our discussions, again, we're both aware, Patrick and I, and of course the board, as Pierre just mentioned, we have a very limited budget. And this is not in the budget.
yeah, you're now our attorney, so you're representing us. So unless there's a specific item that there's a conflict, then I would just assume, you represent us now. So
And that is perfectly fine with me. That's outside of, within the retainer. 15 hours a month goes by, that includes attending meetings very quickly. So, but again, when I get to the court attorney reports, I'll let you know what my thoughts are about communicating.
we have action on this item. There's nothing, and just really,
Did you want to put a hold on it or
No.
just?
I just no, we're not gonna. So we either vote it up or vote it down, whichever way. Your motion, bring it out. So we'll just we're gonna move this. All right, up next, tab 7B, fender replacement contract. We have the drafts. Ted, thanks for sending that over.
Yeah.
Everyone have time to review the draft. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to add really quick, just apologies for the delay. Internally, we got some wires crossed. We got a draft, but now, the chosen contractor has to have their turn to look at it. So, and then, they're gonna pass it back over to Phil, so it's just sort of back and forth. But that's why I didn't want to show up here with excuses, so that's why I slapped a draft watermark on it, so
is something. So I apologize. It's not everything we want.
But it kind of work with that. It's that or to who's the who's that? What are they going to do? I would think that, you know, to be satisfied with a certain value, whether it's on it. Then if we don't respond to their queries, then we open ourselves up for is the range is, you know, pull that grant back to like. And that's why there needs to be a little bit of dialogue with them about information and request, but and make sure that we're going to be report metrics that block. Yeah, loud and clear, got my attention on it, and as soon as we can get something that both the water contractor and we agree with, it will be sitting there, Rosanna. Sound like a plan? Sounds good. Thank you. Any other comments or questions regarding the vendor replacement contract?
Yeah, my question was just, there's several references that Nassau Terminals is the representative and agent for the work. And so I would just ask that, we take a look, like, that Tammy take a look at that and make sure that that's appropriate. Because my understanding was that, you know, they're our operator, but I'm not sure that they're our agent. So,
I saw that. I looked at it with the few minutes that I had, and the first, if may I ask a question, Mr. Chair? Where does the draft of the does that come from? The grant agency, the contractor?
We used a kind of a boilerplate from something similar.
That's it. Yeah, no problem.
It was my, I'm just being honest with you, it's my attempt to.
Yeah, it was actually, I mean, I did follow
Right.
very nicely, construction services contract. I will just let you know with contracts in general, so that you know why in a public meeting and the public knows. This contract, like many others, has an arbitration provision. And my experience with arbitration is, and not just mine, many attorneys. The city of Fernandina Beach, for example, the last arbitration it participated in was lasted for 29 days. And one of the reasons for that is that under the rules of arbitration, the arbitrators or a panel of arbitrators, whichever it is, they cannot exclude evidence. They have to take in all evidence. So when you get a party or parties, attorneys that are like rolling in boxes of documents and it just goes on and the clock just keeps ticking. So I advise my clients to not accept arbitration provisions. We can always agree to mediation with a contractor, and if that doesn't work out, then everybody should be able to go to court. Although it's supposed to be efficient, arbitration doesn't.
Let me ask you a question. I don't want to wait the lead. Would it shortcut this? We need to go ahead and ask that question. If we can sell out.
That'll be one of the main provisions that, yes, I mean, I've never had a contractor say no. Like I say, mediation is fine. If the board accepts that, it's a good way to go. He's gonna ask to make sure. I mean, other than that, there were, I will look into the agency provisions. Yeah, I didn't see anything really else. There might be the grant agreement. I probably would take that grant agreement and put it next to this construction services, make sure there are not state or federal provisions that need to be in there.
All right, thank you.
I know we
If I get a determination on that, should I just send that to Rosanna? This is direction to you. Send Rosanna a copy here. Copy out to me. Mr. Hill, we're gonna.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it sounds like Tim needs to do a little bit more analysis, so but we would just expect to see it at the next meeting in 2 weeks.
All right. So, Ms. Fox, I heard you mention you have an attorney report. So usually our second meeting, we don't do a operator, accountant, or attorney report. However, it's your first meeting, so we like to go.
Yeah,
I'll
it's brief.
go right now.
Brief. First of all, thank you so much for your confidence in me. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be back in the saddle. And I wanted to, some of the things Rosanna has copied me on a bunch of emails as the operator. And so I wanted to, and one of the things that I'm noticing is that the flow of information between administration, the attorney, the operator, and court commissioners is it seems some court commissioners are involved in certain aspects, Commissioner Moore has worked with Rosanna on things, and as I'm reading this, I'm thinking back to boards that I've served, and sometimes other commissioners can say, wait a second, why do they know this and I don't? Or you might not think of it at the time, but when you get to the meeting and a member of the public says, the commissioner answers because they have all this information, the rest are like, why don't we know this? So I would like to work with Rosanna to improve how we communicate and how commissioners, I'd like you all ideally to have the same amount of information as the others when you come to a meeting. So if Commissioner Moore has worked on something, so I haven't thought it all the way through. I will, and I'm going to meet with Rosanna on Friday because as you guys know, and we certainly know, we don't have staff other than Rosanna. So depend on her heavily. And then my time needs to be limited based on our budget. But I think that I can work with that to try to help improve because I care about how you all are getting information and what you know when you get here. And so I'd like to work on that. And then the other thing that I noticed is that I noticed some OPA commissioners are involved in different, specific items. I know Commissioner Nelson, you're out at the court all the time. It would be nice if when I saw emails, I was thinking, did the commission, did the OPA board authorize that commissioner to, meet with staff? Not that that's necessary in every case, but it just brought up some questions that I'd like to work on. That's okay. It's not going to be any extra time. Just, I think it's something that will help everybody. And certainly you're newer to us, so it might help you guys too, how we pass information and make decisions because there are decisions that have to be made outside of board meetings. And, sometimes that shouldn't all fall on the chair depending on what it is. In fact, it can't because the board cannot delegate one member, even if they are the chair, to make a decision on behalf of the board. So anyway.
So I think given your experience with a political board like this, who falls under the sunshine law and everything, I think it's great. I think any way that you can kind of help, especially with communication, how it's disseminated, I think it's wonderful. And, yeah.
And my plan is that you all will see and know it's not a sunshine law violation, and you'll see me write it. It's annoying. I know it's annoyed city commissioners too. I'll send you all an email and it'll say in all caps, do not reply all. That tells you that if you pick up the phone or you can just hit one reply to me if you have a reply, but it shouldn't be, thank you. I get that you have it this way. We'll keep our emails short, but don't reply all, and then there's not a sunshine law violation. But then I can send an email, or Rosanna can send an email that says, okay, this is what we accomplished. So when we get to the meeting, everybody knows what we accomplished.
Mr. Chair, normally when I'm working on something, I always go through Rosanna for her distribution. We can add the attorney in on that, but there's a lot.
Oh, yeah, and I don't
Yeah,
need
there's a
to be
lot.
added. I'm not trying to control anything or to get at. All I want to do is make sure that whichever commissioner is working on something, that you feel that you have the authorization from the board, and the board knows what's happening too. And it's a lot of times my understanding is that you're out at the court. It may not be for anything official. You're a commissioner, you're allowed to be out there and you'll go out there and take a look at something. That doesn't have to be authorized. And that's what I mean. And I'm not clipping wings here in any way. You all continue to do what you're doing. Just a way I had questions as I'm reading the emails and thinking, I wonder if, Commissioner Hill knows this, or anyway, so. You'll see more of those emails that'll come with do not reply all, and it's really information.
I struggle with it. I think every letter. It's been on for less than probably 9 years, says the city. So it's very restrictive. So that's sort of not something that you can fix. Any difference in your experience with smoothing over the administrative process to ensure that all the commissioners are fully informed and appropriately informed.
And if any of you have questions about the sunshine law, I gave you you have my cell phone number, you can call me, I'm happy to answer any questions, whatever you have that relates to your service here.
Try to keep them limited quick.
I still bring the questions on as long as you won't be offended if I say, I really don't, that's a lot. I don't, we don't have time, or if you want that, we'll ask the board if we want to go.
Just watch fast because it's we only get 15 hours a month. So.
Right. That's right.
I'm not using it.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, Tammy, on the sunshine law, I've been approached by some at the port, and they're a little reservation about talking. And I explained to them, as a public official, you can speak with me. It's just that I can't call out 2 or 3 other commissioners and converse with you about your issue. But talking to me, they have a First Amendment right to talk to me openly, freely, whatever. Correct me if I'm wrong, and this is what I told them. You can talk to me. I just can't call other commissioners out here and have a powwow with you.
That's,
Okay.
you are absolutely correct.
Okay. But the management at Relay has freedom to call me if there's a question, or if I'm out there and they approach me, you have a right to talk to me openly, and I have a right to talk to you openly. Okay.
The sunshine law really only affects the board members. It doesn't affect us. We're not animals. The only thing under the Florida sunshine law that we're bound by is to make sure that, not even for you, but for me, as board attorney, is that we're publishing an agenda, we're taking minutes, and you have a meeting that's open. Other than that, and of course, the public record stuff, that's a little bit separate. And sunshine law has to do with our meetings and conversations. But yes, any individual commissioner can speak to any of your staff, without violating. So decisions cannot. So that's the one thing that any staff that we have that is because they see or hear commissioner, their junior staff, you all, they may not understand that one person doesn't have authority. So they don't have authority in their own right. They certainly can gather information and bring it back to the board here to make these decisions.
All right, any other comments or questions for Tammy? Well, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to new business, tab 8A, cost estimate to relocate fabric warehouse. We do have some public comments on that. Up first, we have Ms. Catherine Barrett.
Down there, 432 North Third Street. Thank you very much. Well, I'm sure everybody you're doing tremendously. It's about a year ago, Kyle managed with $600,000 to move that tent, and everybody's like, oh. And now we know it is way substantially less. So when you reapply for the permit correctly and as required by the city, please put it in the right place. Thank you.
All right, and then we have Mr. Lutheran.
The very 432 North Third Street. I lived across from Mira House in Port Operation for 20 years. So I know somewhat goes on there. I mean, I'm not an operator, don't know anything about it. A lot of things I say, I don't really know what I'm talking about. But what I'm getting ready to say now, I do know what I'm talking about. In this very room, plaques on that wall right there, we discussed, where are we going to put that fabric warehouse? And it was in agreement by all in the offer. This is where we're gonna put it. And people in this room, all agree, even one person is worried about it. It all came that this is where we're gonna put it. But it turns out, without any notice, it was moved to a different location, and here we are now, trying to figure out what we're gonna do. I'm tired of hearing about the cost. I think the cost goes to the operator and the company that constructed that fabric warehouse in the wrong place. They should share that cost. And that should be how it's moved back to the original location where it should have been from day one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Theron. And then up next, we have Tammy Cosat.
And because I think you two are third, I'm not gonna repeat everything that you just heard, but they basically stole my thunder. One point I would like to add to this, wonderfully, lower cost than the casual ones that have been thrown around in the past. Almost a quarter of this bid is attributed to the repair that's out there right now. So we're still not even looking at considering this for roofing the tent. So got replacement cover in 2 areas, and that doesn't even include the labor. So we know the labor for the labor that on that side would be very expensive. So the cover will be conservatively much more than a quarter of this, and that would be attributed to that repair. So I would echo what Luke said and have this move to the originally approved location to be not only in that location, but also oriented in the same way. Let's not have any problems with them putting it in a different position and make sure we go through the proper process with the city. So it goes through pre-planning meetings, through TRC, so we get fire suppression, we get all the necessary requirements through planning and through building. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cosat. All right, so going to, so again, tab 8A, cost estimate to relocate the fabric warehouse. This question, I admittedly brought this up, to get a exact figure because we had, my recollection was we had heard some numbers several months ago when this came up. I thought it was closer to actually 400, but probably right, maybe, $500,000, but we're looking at 213 plus. So first, Ted, thank you for getting this together. I think you're doing it so fast. I know it's something that nobody wants to do, to spend the money to relocate something. But I'm going to open it to the board right now for comments, questions, discussion, and regarding the fabric warehouse.
I didn't talk about this, related to grants. I'm data validation. Now, just throwing out figures, and you didn't do it, but figures were from, what I, it's important that any figures that are thrown out, have some sort of data validation. So that we can point to that as accurate assessment, not just, I heard the cost $500,000. A year back, oh, I'm good at this. That's a lot of money. You can't do that. When in actuality, the figure is considerably less. More than half. When you factor in the repairs that are needed in the contract settlement too. But certainly I don't think, obviously they need to be made, but, and I'm not saying it's wrong to include them in this, but we need to factor in that the actual movement is even less than 2 million. That.
Yeah, I think I,
Yeah, please.
yeah, I think I clarified that, on my pace to get, you say, numbers. This is a quote that assumed we were quote shipping. That's not what this is worth. So I didn't have enough time to go back and requote it. And so that's why I called up, I had our engineer call up and say, hey, what's the real number to move across the terminal? I said, well, 250 will probably do it, just ballpark it. And then that's where
How much of the damage to that? Yeah, would come out around about 213.
So just to let you know, I mean, so a fabric warehouse can be patched. So right now we're going to fix that, and I have a PO right now, but this is a up in the air project. So it would only be about, I think, 15,000 to fix it. If you'd like that repair cost estimate, I can email that to Roseanne for validation.
So we had an opportunity last year, it was just first constructed, um, to relocate it then, and we chose not to because we don't want the operator to incur the cost. Took it as an, I'll just say, a slap on the wrist, don't do that again. I remember the conversation. I remember Kyle Clark after the meeting, and I was talking, and even actually I think during the meeting, saying it was on him, it was his mistake. Um, it comes back now because of this permitting issue, and now there's another opportunity for us to maybe force them to move fabric warehouse and incur the $250,000 cost. What's the solution? We didn't do it before, but what's the solution? Now moving forward, and that's what I want to think about. I want to try to get something positive, and if it is relocating fabric warehouse and just getting it done, okay. But is that the best long term solution for this topic?
Mr. Chairman, I think that we've looked at the only other option would be to try to work that deal with the city, which is out. That's not going to happen for the buffers. When you make a decision, you have to be responsible for that decision. So the decision was made, in their opinion only, that the move of that fabric warehouse from where it was approved to be built to where it is right now was operational. To me, doesn't hold water. I ran that terminal out there. I knew where the pros and the cons were, and they moved right in the middle of a con. There was nothing pro about that. It needs to be moved back where it was approved, and we need to finish this. We need to be done with this. We've got other things that we need to pay attention to. We don't need to be sitting here spending money on legal back and forth. They need to get their best price. They need to move the cargo out of it. They need to move the fabric warehouse where it was approved to be built, and we're done with it. That's where I'm at with it.
Chairman,
Mr. Hill.
how much has been paid to Coast to Coast? So you know,
So I got again.
How much? She's asking how much has been paid to Coast for the construction of the fabric warehouse.
I'm not sure.
They're flat all invoices still due, yeah. Which is what, 100?
Um,
No, the point that I'm just where the approval to put the fabric warehouse originally was part of it was before I got there. I know that was part of a very exhaustive process that we engaged with the citizenry that that's for public meetings, debate back and forth between the commissioner and people out there. And you came to a mutual agreement to put it in that third place. And then unilaterally for the decision made to move it to a different location. Now based on that movement, there's a proposed settlement that I can certainly make go forward, which will encumber the property, reducing your value fast.
I don't believe other than being without being for that owner. I don't believe that OHPA should bear any cost associated with either the relocation for the current, where it currently is, or any cost associated with relocating it to the location that we originally leased.
Well, we wouldn't, NOPA would not bear this cost. That's what we're looking at, is that we're gonna ask the operator to spend $250,000 to relocate it. When again, we had an opportunity several months ago to say, you know what, no, you didn't listen, you didn't put it where it's supposed to go, and now it needs to be relocated.
If I may, I'm not trying to start the day here, but the proposed settlement was signed binding. It was signed by a member of this board and by board's attorney. I'm just putting out there, so it's
Um, okay, so, we,
I wanted to respond to that. That was an acknowledgement of the agreement, not agreeing to the agreement, because we're going to go back to what the attorney just said. I don't have the authority to act on the boards, the complete board, but I was sent there as a representative by the chair. And we had to sign it for the magistrate as an acknowledgement that we were there, we heard the particulars to bring it back to the full board. And that was explained in detail by the court attorney at the last meeting, that it was not an agreement, it was an acknowledgement. So there is a difference.
going back to what Tammy just said, one commissioner can't make that decision for the entire board. That would then come back for discussion and for us to make that decision. So even not that you were, but even at the time, if you agreed to that, or not, sorry, not that you did, Vice Chair agreed to that, Patrick agreed to that when it comes here, the five of us ultimately make that decision. So it's going to be agree. The other,
Yep. So the original contract with Coast to Coast required that they obtain all necessary permits. So I don't think they would have received payments. I don't know how much is left to be paid, but they shouldn't be paid until it's in a location that allows them to get a CO. So they haven't fulfilled their obligation. It's not in the location that was approved. And so I don't think we should approve another contractor to come in and move the building, which could potentially void the warranty from the original contractor on the building. I don't think we need more contractors to make more commitments to us that are going to be broken. I think we need the original contractor to put it in a location that was approved. And I don't think that we waived any of our rights by waiting to allow the permit to be granted. We told the contractor and we told we told Greg that you proceeded at your own risk. And we requested that you stop work, but Savage decided to proceed at your own risk. And so here we are. And I think we should formally vote that the operator needs to move the building to the original approved location, however you achieve that. And we've already approved a contract that required the building to be in a location that will give it a CO. And so I suggest that you take that original authorization and get it done. I mean, do we need to make a motion that we request the operator to move the warehouse to the originally approved location?
you're welcome to make a motion.
Okay, I'd like to make that motion, Chair.
So I have a motion from Commissioner Hill, second from Commissioner Moore. I have a question for Tammy. Legally, I mean, I guess it would be the operator, or would it be us, the operator, going after Coast to Coast, or if they didn't really complete the job by,
I'm not
well,
familiar with the
can't
contract.
you actually?
No, well, right, but just in general, you can proceed against a contractor when you're in privity with them. So is OPA a party to the contract? So
Okay. Either,
So do we need you to write a letter then to Coast to
Well,
Coast?
we would have Patrick
Well,
do it.
yeah.
We'll have Patrick do it because that's what you already approved,
Yeah.
was that his agreement to do that. It sounds like to wrap this up. It's, is it a three-party agreement or it's just between this board and Coast to Coast?
it's three.
So the
seven
operators
others there
party
as well.
also. I mean. Yeah, I think the operator and this board together.
Well, that's what I'm getting at is how do we work together on trying to make this right? So it's not, hey, you do this. It's, well, do this, but how are we gonna make this right? And what's the recourse? How do we, right, contractor didn't complete the job essentially. Okay.
I would
So-
say, sure, you know, you could possibly give with the contractor and, yeah, because it was up and in the right place, might work with you a little bit better, might could supply some of the manpower or some of the hours to help with that. But even if we move it, not everybody's gonna be happy with the new placement. I know some particular one person that would be unhappy if you move it back to the approved location or the one that we agree. So I'm just saying, just putting this out there.
Well, and just to clear the record, we're not moving it to please the neighbors. We're moving it because, for one, the location wasn't approved and it's in a setback. And so now we have a dispute with the city, which we didn't ask for that dispute with the city. And so the due diligence wasn't done to approve the location to ensure that it's in the right spot. And now it's in a spot that is within a setback. So I mean, that's where when you skip steps and you don't follow proper process and you don't pull permits for work, you end up in situations like this that are expensive. And that's not our problem. I mean, it's silly. It's silly that we're sitting here right now and that we've spent this much time talking about this issue.
So Tammy, I just want to add to this, if, yes, we can give, Patrick and then give the operator on how to work together on, I don't want to say go after coast to coast, I don't know what the right term is, but, if you, yeah.
Are we still gonna proceed with her motion?
But yes, so we got a motion, we got a second. So we got a motion, we got a second. All those in favor?
Clarify that motion.
So, yeah, so the motion is going to be, the operator will relocate the fabric warehouse to the correct location.
The original.
Sorry, the original approved location. And then I'd ask Tammy if she can notify or work with Patrick, and then the operator on, recourse coast to coast. So,
Yes.
correct?
That's the motion.
That was your second?
Second.
All right. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Chair, would you like to confirm that location,
It's,
right? I mean, just to say it publicly.
it's for the legal description of what.
That was from the RFP.
So that
So-
for additional warehouses.
So it's gonna be right here.
That was the general idea, that because there was discussion of a second one, but it needs to go in the far northeast corner.
Ted, do you have a copy of the original location? That's the original approved. Is that it?
I forwarded RFP to Mr.
So then, okay, so it's in there, okay. All right. Up next, tab 8B, standard operating procedure for grant applications. Miss Catherine Barron.
Y'all, I'm coming to, all right, I don't understand your job, but I don't pretend to. But in my little piece of food, spent 45 years as a construction manager, and I will manage facilities and construction projects all over the world. And I hear some struggle with the contract says, but standard procedures let you overlay a matrix of responsibilities well below the contract. So let's just establish things like who is accountable for the permit and who's assured that the grant meets our technical requirements and who is testing the fire suppression system. Those are so easily laid in place. Even when I was in school, there were almost textbook applications. I know you're familiar with. It seems to me so many of the things I've heard over the last 3 or 4 years could be mitigated by just some basic processes. You standard operating procedure test fire suppression. Put it out there. So there is no question. Who's doing it? Who's writing the grant? Well, that's it. Say, will this tug up meet our needs? Or is this a doable bill? Who's going to do maintenance? Those are easy processes to have a dialogue on, lay in place. And I just think you're so capable of doing that as individuals, and I would really like to see you pull together as a group. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aaron. And I am willing to bet that there are standard operating procedures, SOPs, as I'm sure Vice Chair can attest to. I know, and I do want to point out, Ted brought up the idea of what's the standard operating procedure for grant applications. What are the SOPs there? So that being on our agenda, it's really something. What do those procedures look like? Instead of saying Rosanna's going to get with Ted, and then Commissioner Moore is going to come and get involved, and we don't know what's going to happen next, but there should be some SOPs, something spelled out, actual procedures in place. So thank you, Ms. Darren, for that. And Ted, thanks for bringing that up, because that is something that we certainly need to have in place. I think you're itching to say something, Vice Chair.
Well, there was a question on the inspection of the fire suppression.
Yeah.
It's annually. It's part of your marine terminal security audit that they usually do somewhere around September. Coast Guard is very attentive to those inspections. We have to produce, I had to produce the certificates that we got from Bill Williams. These guys that we use to come in there and inspect those fire suppression. So it is part of your annual FSP Marine Terminal Security Audit. So if you go back to your book, your files, you should be able to pull those certificates up and show them to anybody. Because it's part of the record.
Right, then subject to the city from Avena fire engine.
The fire marshal comes and wants to see the inspection on that suppression system. Absolutely, he has a right to request it.
And then are there inspections randomly done by OSHA?
OSHA doesn't get too involved in that, but they leave it up to the fire marshal. We've had the fire marshal come by there, and he'll go through there and check them. And he'll also ask for your inspection, your certificate. So yeah, it's all part of. That's why that FSP is the golden book, because it'll keep you out of trouble. And Coast Guard, people say, what are they worrying about fire for? That's one of their big things is fire protection. So they do pay attention to it. So whoever your acting FSO is, I will contact them, not the AFSO, but the FSO, and say we want to review these records. But I will caution you, the FSO and the AFSO are normally the only ones that can look at that book. It's not open for public view. In the event somebody in here wants to look at it, you have to write a letter to the Department of Transportation, the secretary, and they will review your request. And most of the time they say no, because that is very sensitive security information. So I'll leave that to y'all to follow up, but I would say get with your FSO. He should know the ins and outs.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. And just going back to the SOP for grant applications, it's really best if Rosanna and Ted, I don't know if you're the person, whoever can work with her on really helping to lay out that process, the standard operating procedures of, I don't know if there's already something in place that you have, but just something so we just have a good procedure there?
No, I mean, we see the streamline communications and, what's our North Star, how we can get there. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant. Consistent, yes. Well, that's one, that one, all way to finish. Yeah.
All right, so that's something though that, again, having this on the item, just.
Yeah, I mean, just to talk in practical terms, we're gonna have to go third party with this. I don't have anybody in house to manage it. I don't have anybody with that specific skill set, so obviously we need to find somebody who's well versed in maritime and industrial port applications, federal and state levels. So that kind of narrows down the list of candidates. We're actively looking for someone now. So if the board has any recommendations, that would be welcome.
So, I mean, the grants really benefit the port and they benefit the operator. And so if you're the business that is getting 80% of a project paid for, 75% of a project paid for, or 90% of a project paid for, that's your incentive to, to figure out how to apply for those grants. Because the partnering with OPA is the advantage to being in a public port, right? Like you have a private terminal, you know how to capitalize those expenditures, you know what your cost of capital is there versus a public port where you have access to tax-free financing. And so the benefit to you is that delta, right? That 20% delta on your project. And if you don't want to pursue those grants because they don't make sense, then we need to know, right? Like there was a time period where the operator built up a book of grants that the operator had no intention of actually drawing down. And so we were penalized from the state when we went to apply for more grants. They said you cannot apply for more grants until you use the grants you have. And it's because they wanted the books to look really good, but they had all of this funding available to them in order to market the business to you. So all of that capital was available. Now some of those grants have been drawn down. A lot of them just expired and were not used. But the key is to look at the long-term plan for the port and to have that capital investment plan overlay with the grants that are coming available, because we're looking 5 years out. And now that we have an engineer on retainer, we should be able to quickly respond and come up with the plans to be shovel ready when those grants are coming down, when we get the NOFOs. So if you work with, I know Blue Jay was one. There were other grant writers that you all have worked with in the past. There's also an opportunity to piggyback. If there's another grant writing outfit that you see is used for other FDOT projects or FSTED projects, you could piggyback off of their grant writing agreement. But usually it's a 5% premium off the top. So another way to manage it would be to work with the engineer to write it yourself. So, I mean, you either pay for the services or you manage it in-house, but I would expect the operator to absorb those costs. So if you want to work with a third party, work with a third party. But I've seen it done both ways. And frankly, I mean, the key is, are we able to come up with that match money? Are these really like actionable projects? So, I mean, if you all can afford to work with a private, grant writing outfit, then by all means, do it. Do you need suggestions on names?
So I have a few, considering now, so I'll email Rosanna what I have so far, and maybe y'all can get suggestions back. But okay, or is that too messy?
Yeah, so MARAD is one that like the US Department of Transportation, they have grant administrators, or they have historically. I know they've had with the RIFs the person we worked with before was let go. But, if you reach out to the grant making entity, they can point you to resources for applying for the grant. But I mean, it's like we keep sort of bringing this up and like poking at it, but I haven't really seen any action. So I know you're new, but is anybody within Savage like focused on this issue? Like from a finance perspective, our grants, like, can you speak to that? Like whether grants are something we want to pursue?
I think y'all where I think the board was issued a conditional assessment report from the last year, the year before, right? So like my reaction to grants is yes, we should go for that. And then when we speak to specifics, I mean, I think Ferdinand in particular I think it's slotted as a small port, right? So specifically to the PIDP, which is a large funding source for federal funding source for grants. 25% of that is slotted for quote small projects and small ports. So small project was up to $11 million, which is could make a real impact at a port like Ferdinand. There's some structural and electrical items that I think need to be addressed. So, Commissioner, I just want to let you know I'm not going to go try to get new formulas, right? Like that's that's an item that of side investment. What I'm aiming for is structural improvements that'll ensure the long-term viability of this port, especially when it relates to the flood, because that's especially with king tides, it's been a big problem.
So do we need to perhaps like set a recurring meeting? Because like currently Rosanna and Pierre and sometimes our lawyer are involved in the grant agreements, the application for the grants, preparing everything to come before the board for approval. So it might be helpful to have like a recurring meeting like every 2 weeks or so where there's movement on grant applications. It is the season.
We have a meeting tomorrow, though.
Yeah.
On grants. So
With
we have-
FDOT. Well,
Yeah,
okay.
it's essentially talks about grants, right? So,
Yeah.
and obviously, yes, FDOT representatives come, but I believe that's all the parties. I'm assuming you guys are coming to that meeting.
Travis will be there. I am 50-50 right now.
That's fine, but yeah, I mean, obviously, we have a meeting tomorrow. We meet, I think it's once every 2 months now, only because we don't have that many grants going on, right? There's just not that many active grants currently. We were meeting once a month previously. And again, in theory, that's the people that are involved in grants. So, and again, that discussion does not have to be limited to FDOT grants. Obviously, the FDOT is there to help us, and they come to that meeting just to discuss their grants and things like that. But we certainly could discuss other things at that meeting. So we're already meeting again twice a month right now. Again, just because there's just not that much activity.
Okay. So when we're
Specifically the items. We had a meeting yesterday with the operator, the process, validation of the requirements. Going to move forward with doing the actual application for that. The more on everything, the better it is, the better the product will convert to the participant.
So I have the meeting at 2:30 tomorrow.
Mhm.
But Commissioner Moore is on a different discussion for,
Well, since you're the point person for FDOT
Okay.
committee, you are in there.
okay, but the FDOT is not going to require a grant writer. The
No,
FDOT grants.
no.
So you're talking about a grant writer only for PIDP.
No, FDOT could require, why couldn't FDOT require a grant writer?
Okay.
FDOT grants have to be applied for in the same kind of competitive process through Florida Ports Council or whatever, right? So, but I mean, those have to be written by someone.
Yeah, I'm well aware. FDOT process is way less stringent, but I think some advisors, especially for me, I'm not from the state of Florida, so would help in that regard.
Okay.
But then the heavy lift's going to be federal.
And I think the issue is identifying grant opportunities, right? It's not just a grant writer, but there are potentially, besides PIDP, besides FDOT, are there MARAD was another one, right? Are there other opportunities for grants that we don't know about? That's to me, besides grant writing, it's obviously we rely heavily on FDOT. Like I said, PIDP has come up recently. Are there other opportunities where we could get funds from some source? So I think that's the kind of one of the key issues.
Yeah, I think, playing the grant game, I found the opposite side of things, reviewing the grant. It's an interesting process. It's easy and it's not difficult, but it's having somebody that understands the process and understands where to go on research grant opportunities that open up at the federal level and at the state level. It can be a very time-consuming process. There are more people out there that specialize doing just that.
I've forwarded in a list of grant writers to Mr. McNair. And also, I will direct him to grants.gov. Relay has the staff to look into that. Those are a lot of grants in there. You guys don't have a port director, so Relay will have to research that. Grants.gov. Just create an account and all the information are there.
All right. So we got to start. So we're going to move off this item unless there's any other comments or questions. Okay. So before we jump into our fun, exciting workshop, we are going to take a 5-minute break, at discretion of the chair, and we will be back in 5 minutes.
comment?
Okay.
All right, so this is now the goal setting, the goal setting workshop, but this is often done with the help of a facilitator. But instead, I really want to have just an informal discussion so we get an idea of really where we want to be. So we know, at least the commissioners know, I mean, we're an independent special district that was created in 1941, ultimately to encourage economic development in Nassau County. We often say we're the elected economic development arm of the county. When you look at projects that OPA has been responsible for, we've got newly the Nassau Tradeplex. OPA created the infrastructure required for really Nassau's first industrial complex. Then you've got the Buccaneer Trail that connects Amelia Island and Duval County. OPA was responsible for the construction, which helped transport goods to the island. And then in 1985, OPA issued bonds to finance construction of a modern day seaport terminal, which we now know as the Port of Fernandina. So it's been a while since we really looked at, I think, those opportunities or had opportunities like that. And I really wanted to get us talking and thinking about what's out there for us to do. I've asked the executive director of the Nassau County Economic Development Board, Sherry Mitchell, to come. She's here. We actually have a brief, she's going to show a draft of their strategic plan. And then Nassau County Economic Resources Manager, Holly Coyle, to attend, and not really for them to get up and speak or give any presentation, but really just to kind of start that dialogue and really see what we can do, where we can go from here. Looking at our mission and long-term vision, I want to cover that. It's listed in our master plan. The mission, the Oklahoma Port Authority was created in 1941 and authorized to carry out public purposes to benefit to the citizens of the county of Nassau and the state of Florida. Was the vision of the Ocean Highway Port Authority to serve as a primary public facilitator of sustainable economic activity in Nassau County by developing and operating port and other facilities in support of local and regional businesses for the benefit of the citizens of Nassau County and the state of Florida. And really to kind of kick us off, we talk about municipal bonds and our bonding capabilities. I've asked Pierre to give us a brief and a third grade presentation of bonding. So I'll really turn it over to him.
All right. Thank you. Just a very brief presentation on bonds. And obviously, usually when we talk about bonds for the Ocean Harbor Port Authority, we're talking about conduit bond financing. And this, so just so you know, this presentation comes from RBC Capital Markets. They gave us the presentation back in 2021. They came and gave us a presentation. So this comes from a much larger presentation about bonds and the ability to do that. And I could send that to anybody who wants it. It's floating around. I've sent it to various people at various times when they ask about bonds. But so just, you know, again, when we talk about bonds, obviously there's municipal bonds, which are issued by things like cities to build airports and power plants, things like that. And then there are industrial development bonds, and I'll cover the industrial development bonds because that's mostly what the Ocean Highway Port Authority kind of would get involved with. But when we talk about the Ocean Highway Port Authority and issuing bonds, we're talking about conduit bond financing, which is essentially issuing the bonds in support of an entity or a project. And the important part is we are a conduit issuer. So as a conduit issuer, you know, so the loan proceeds are in the name of Ocean Highway Port Authority, but they belong to this third party, whoever that third party that we're doing. And the borrower is responsible for all the loan payments. So there's no credit involved for the Ocean Highway Port Authority. There's no risk or anything like that. It's, as I said, the total risks are borne by the borrower, this third party borrower that is essentially is using OHPA as a conduit for this funding. So as I said, OHPA doesn't have any payment obligations, any obligations for reporting, anything to do with these bonds, other than, as I said, serving as the conduit issuer. It's in the same way, again, OHPA doesn't have any credit, you know, so obviously we have the port agreement, and actually the port agreement is pledged against the current bonds from the that we've served to the port operator, from 2019. So the actual port operating agreement, which is the only essentially asset that we have other than the actual buildings at the port, uh, is serving as security for the current bond agreement for the port operator right now. So as I said, but there's no, the OHPA doesn't have any credit itself, can't go out and borrow its own. Again, even if you were to do something like municipal bonds, those projects have to stand on their own. As a conduit bond financer, the project has to stand on its own, or the creditor, the borrower, has to have its own credit worthiness. In the same way, like I said, if you remember, even for the previous bonds, Kinder Morgan guaranteed those bonds for the Port Authority, right? So as I said, the Port Authority itself, even when we built the port, couldn't secure those bonds with just the operating funds from the port. It needed someone with credit worthiness to provide a guarantee, and that's what, as I said, we paid Kinder Morgan annually for, well, the bond proceeds, the bond revenues from the port pay Kinder Morgan annually for their use of their credit to secure the bonds that built the port for Medina. So as I said, the project borrower has to be credit worthy on their own. So this is not an SBA loan. Someone who doesn't have any credit, a business that's starting up, is not going to be able to issue conduit bonds. As I said, they have to have their own credit worthiness, and the project has to stand on its own with their credit worthiness. So that's, like I said, that's what we talk about most of the time when we talk about bonds. And there's essentially, there's probably a lot more than that. So I'm not a bond expert by any stretch of the imagination, but obviously municipal bonds, as I said, like, your city sewer system and things like that. And then there's these, what we call industrial development bonds. And that's most of the time what we're talking about. We're talking about funding specific projects. They're sold to investors. They can be both tax exempt, depending on what kind of facilities they involve, and uh, non-tax exempt. So, and I think the current bonds, even now, because some of it was used for the port facilities themselves, like the warehouses and things like that. Part of the bond that was issued in 2019 is tax free, and part of it is taxable, and it just depends on what the use of the bonds is for. Um, so what kind of projects can be financed? Next page, yeah. What kind of projects can be financed? Land acquisition, new construction. But I think, if somebody comes to us, we would certainly reach out to RVC. RVC's been more than willing. They've been up here several times over the past 10 years to present us. So if anybody came to the Port Authority with the idea of us being a conduit issuer, we would certainly key in RVC to see what kind of project, what kind of terms, all that kind of stuff. So and so yeah. So and then, like I said, just the next page is I won't go through the IDB process, and then an overview of the bond process is the next page. Like I said, I won't go through all that. We've gone again. We did it in 2019, and involves a big team of lawyers. Obviously, bond issuers. The bonds have to be priced in the market. So there's, Morgan Stanley was involved in 2019. So again, all these different, and we still deal with, obviously, the Mount Zion, which is the bond trustee. I forget. I'm trying to think what their name is. But anyway, there's a trustee now that essentially manages the bonds, where again, for credit and all that kind of stuff. So, and we've done that for a long time. Even the previous bonds had a trustee who would essentially handle how the money is distributed, right? Where the port operations go, in what order those funds are used, and what they're used for.
So if I could just add one thing.
Mhm.
So the conduit bonding allows us as a public entity issuer to provide financing to a private entity that uses the proceeds to finance a project. But the project must be for a public purpose, and it must benefit the community. So the underlying project still has to be a public purpose project in order for OHPA to be the issuer. Just want to point that out. That's for conduit financing. So the IDBs, I think, can be used for other industrial purposes, but they're just distinct as to like what the underlying project has to be.
And again, I'm no bond expert, so again, if you have a question, I'm going to call RBC and have Julie so much is still there. And if not, I'm sure somebody else will. you know, yeah, I mean, again, these guys are experts. They would know, again, is there a path for us to, if a particular company said, we're doing this, we're building a warehouse facility that's going to create, 100 jobs. Could we get conduit bond financing for that? For pick up, call RBC. That'd be the first call. So,
Yeah, what's the, sort of minimum and maximum figure on the bond?
I don't know that there's a minimum, maximum IDB bonds. I think an $11 million limit.
It's the max.
For IDB bonds, but as a conduit issuer, I don't know that there's a limit. Again, right. I mean, so like I said, IDB industrial development bonds, there is, that's a very specific type of bond. So
Is there a minimum?
no, but obviously it's expensive. It's a long process. It involves huge amounts of documents, huge amount of lawyers. There's limits on how much of the bond proceeds can be spent on advisor fees and legal fees and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it has to be of a certain size to both make it worthwhile to generate enough to stay, let's say, within, I think it's 5% or 3% to be spent on legal fees or bond issuer fees or whatever. Well, it has to be a specific size to cover the cost. So it is more expensive, but obviously, but it allows, it frees up credit. Obviously, remember the port operator, if you remember, or you may not know, but they had a line of credit for BBT that they financed when they purchased the port back in, I'm going to say 2017, whatever year that was. And then by getting the bonds, it freed up their capital to be able to do other things, right? So again, it was a way for them to again regain some control over their capital, because obviously, as just going straight to borrow 10 million or whatever for the bank, they had to have letters of credit, they had tied up their credit, right? And so now again, these give them some of the freedom to do some other things. So, and that's why they did the bond financing in 2019 after initially purchasing the port again, whatever, 2019, 2017, whatever year that was, that uh, Worldwide Terminals bought the port from Kinder Morgan. So,
And there might be a bond issuance where there's a series that's tax exempt because that's deemed to be like the public part of the project. And then there might be a portion that is taxable because it's not deemed to be public benefit.
yeah, and seaports is one of those things that could be funded with non or tax exempt bonds. So if it's related to the actual seaport itself, the facilities, it could be tax exempt. Whereas, and again, it just depends. And that's what in 2019 the port operator did. They have a portion of it that's tax exempt and a portion of it that's not tax exempt. So, but still helpful to them and more beneficial. So
Was the not tax exempt part used to pay off the debt to Kinder Morgan or to the initial?
so there was no, obviously Kinder Morgan was done in 2017, right? So
So we don't.
so they went to the bank and borrowed money in 2017 when they had BBT or someone, and I want to say it was $10 million line of credit or whatever that they had with the bank. Yes, the bond proceeds were used to pay that off, or part of the bond proceeds were used to pay that off.
Any other questions for Pierre? So I wanted to kind of get that brief overview. In our discussion is again, what are we capable of doing? What can we do? There's so much discussion when we come to these meetings regarding Puerto Fernandino, which is great. It's a great project. What other opportunities are out there? And so I invited Sherry Mitchell and Holly Coyle to come in again, not putting Holly Coyle on the spot to get up and speak because I have to, but she's welcome to. But I do want to give Sherry Mitchell an opportunity if she would like to come up. She shared with us it's the Nassau County Economic Development Board's strategic plan. And if she'd just like to go over that and
Here. Yes, I have problem. So thank you, and it's nice to meet you all. Sure, it is the economic development board. Welcome to Nassau County.
Thank you.
So let me just go ahead. I want to share this with you all as you guys are going moving forward on setting up any kind of goals and objectives. I just wanted to open up the NCEDB strategic plan that we've recently done. This is our next 5 years.
And I'd like to kind of just navigate through this, our guiding principles and actually, are you the clicker? Good, good, thank you. If you can go a couple pages. We did do a SWOT analysis with our key stakeholders. So through this document, you're going to find a lot of the findings on what, what this was really set on. We actually did this a little bit differently. So we have got, go ahead to the next one. Okay. There we go. So we have got we've got 3 guiding principles: increasing prosperity, improving quality of life, enhancing job growth. We really want to have a sole focus for the next 5 years on bringing in industrial growth. So our 2 sites that we really have been focusing on, and actually there's a third one over there off of 301, are going to be your Crawford Diamond industrial site as well as the Commerce Park. We have got strategic focused areas, targeted economic growth. We've got talent, attraction, development, quality of life, brand identity, and service delivery, and of excellence. And so through these strategies, and the first one, this is going to be and has been one of the sole focuses. Our key objectives being grow the existing businesses. So as we continue to as we continue to market key areas in Nassau County, that's really taking precedence, as I would say, about Crawford Diamond. We're talking to a lot of folks out there. So anything that you guys can add to this, if you want to implement anything on this, they can help us. I'll be happy to collaborate as we do the county as we're moving forward. Talking to a lot of industrial folks, manufacturers. We still have a couple of data centers that are still looking at the area. And that is strategic one, and you'll see the key objectives and actions. I'm not going to bore you with all of these, but we can go ahead and go to the second strategy, which is talent attraction and development. Okay, so having a skilled workforce obviously is key. It's one of the first questions that we get, what is the quality of life here? What is your infrastructure looking like? And do you have a skilled workforce that can fill these plants that we're looking to relocate? We work closely with the school district. We really capitalize on that graded school system. Our MSA goes all the way to the Jacksonville area, utilizing our 4 military bases here. So that speaks volumes. The third strategy is going to be brand identity and storytelling. Getting out there. NCEDB has been for 31 years this year. A lot of folks are not familiar still what it is we do. So our role obviously is going to be job creation and job retention. We have established a program called the VRE program, so business retention expansion. So our board feels very strongly about retaining the companies that have already been here. Also knowing in the back of your mind, always keeping on the radar that the EU would diversify the tax base here and to keep up with all the rooftops. Is to bring in those higher wages. And that's one of the key things that we're focusing on. You want to jump over to the fourth strategy, high performance services. And so this is also going to be being out into the public and letting folks know about economic growth. Really getting in front of the community and getting in front of the other establishments, support of the municipalities, and bringing everybody together to be on the same page. And lastly, it's measuring everything that we're doing, keeping metrics on who we're talking to, where we are. And so that is a diamond in the rough right there. That is one of the key areas here in Nassau County. Whoever does land out there in Crawford Diamond, we want to make sure that they're utilizing all the assets, including our port, our rail out there, the improvements that the county has done, that John has done out of 301. We are perfectly positioned where we are. Being in Nassau County, everything else is getting grown up. And so, people are looking out here. We're seeing a lot of activity. And so if you guys have any questions, I'm here. But again, I encourage you to kind of take a look at this. And I'm sorry, I do have a bit of late on the chair. I do have this in a presentation form, so please forgive me. I just wanted to kind of share this with you. Again, I do encourage you guys to take a look at that and any way to collaborate and help any of you. We're here just for that. So, any questions? I did go through that pretty quick. Yeah.
Well, first, thank you. Thank you for being here. And I know Mike Cole serves on the Economic Development Board. And I'm sure if there's something that comes up, he'll bring that back to us. But I want to ask, what can we do to help? But at the same time, what do you need from us? I mean, what can we do to really help the Economic Development Board, help some of the projects and the things that you all are working on?
Having your services on our radar and in our documents on our website with our regional partners, Jack's USA, making sure that they know about our what we have to offer, knowing about the municipal bond opportunities. And I don't know how long it's been since you guys have utilized any of that, but we have talked to several folks, and I can't say who that is, but so those conversations are being had, just so you know. And so really just kind of keeping it fresh like that, on the trends on what the offerings are here. We had somebody come in from New York wanting to relocate, and we spent 2 days with him. I brought them down here, just wanting to show him, what we have down here. Actually, it's a nice little tour from the Crawford Diamond Industrial Site all the way down to the island, because they get to see where the rail goes, even if it cuts through Jasper, and still see the opportunity and the assets that we have here to offer. And it was a great tour. So those, I'll keep you guys abreast, and really just having that line of communication of the war and visiting with you guys more, let you know what's going on. So, and it's safe and we can do what we can do for you guys. We'll be happy to.
What would the opportunity be for business development, like here, Florida? Able to enter into would there be a plan for businesses that you want to start out and so farmers
Yes, so you're talking about this, what do you mean? People joining your,
well, we have the ability to solve that.
would you have that with us? So definitely.
Yeah.
I
mean,
Yeah, and we've positioned our board that we have, we've recently reduced it, but we have positioned our board, we do have businesses on there, so we've got a few ex officio seats, one of the, towards the. With businesses, we've done, yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. We would have to now.
with the pilot,
Yes.
we were in ship things that will partnership.
Well, we never say any of that. Yeah, we won't. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. We need to utilize every asset that we have to offer here in Madison County that folks are unaware of. We've got a lot more sites. There's forever, not just proper diamond industrial site, not just the, wildlife commerce, which those are two premier sites. But we're land rich here as well. So yes, absolutely.
Sherry,
Yeah, okay.
sorry to put you on the spot. I had a question about financing. So does the Economic Development Board engage in the type of grant making activities that do you, what sort of facilitation do you do?
Right. So what we do, so in case of you do not know, we are a 501(c)(3). We are funded partially by the county. We are funded a huge part by our private sector. We do apply and receive grant funding for economic development. We utilize that for our website revision or any kind of training like that. So we've not really done so much. We've assisted the town of Hilliard, town of Callahan obtain some of the grants, like when they were doing the water plant. The past 7 years, they
received 15.5 million from the state. You know, in implementing a water plan. So that was one of the big key points that we were missing projects, you know, significantly. And so now that we have this, West Side of town is going to be changing. So we actually retained a group, we may or may not have heard of it, 14 group, that helps us navigate through the appropriations. So we do try to do the best we can about development issues for funding from the state. That is a question.
Yeah, so if somebody came to you and wanted to access like funding, you would direct them to the county or to like, you would help them maybe
So
look
usually
for like tax incentives, or how would you sort of help like pull a deal together?
Talking to you, I'm hoping to God their funding is already blessed. You know, some of them it's a unique opportunity because some of them will say, you know, hey, you know, we don't have any buildings. You know, we would like to come in and set up shop, and we would like to lease that company for 99. And so this company, particularly, I was talking specifically about the municipal bonding that's been put on the back burner right now, but until that industry starts turning around, we'll revisit that. So we offer an economic development grant, so a local grant, and then the state incentives. And again, staying in that targeted industry, which is always going to be healthcare, gas manufacturing, IT. And so those drive economic development throughout the state are going to be in those targeted industries. So yes, incentives are available to them.
Awesome, thank you.
Like a physical review, you know, that in a moment. I'm coming up with 20 years. The blessing is doing it. How we can partner with them is continue our support, which we have. I've been in work, so we'll continue with that. But the Institute NCEDB offers, actually it says, we're hoping that they come to us already funded, but if they're not, that we direct them to our small business development or with the people that we have on board that can direct them towards the banking or their and then as you mentioned earlier, our business retention expansion board, BRE, we promote the ones that are already here. And one of our partners is the Vineyard. Tustin Rose, there you go. And Tustin Rose is having a open house Friday from 4 to 8. Saturday, oh, that's my Friday, that's, yeah. If you need the time on it or any questions, you can direct me. Yeah.
All right, I want to also put her on the spot because she's here. Holly Coyle, she works for the county, for Nassau County. She is the Economic Resources Manager. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right.
So just a couple of things. So we just wrapped up our 18-month community engagement process. We were working on our vision plan for the year 2050, trying to find out what growth is going to look like in the next 25 years, where it's going to occur. What we know is that we are probably going to double our population in the next 25 years, another 100,000 people, which equates to about 38,000 dwelling units. And we want to maintain or achieve a jobs to housing ratio of 1:1, so that's 38,000 jobs as well. So what we've done through this process is we have created our roadmap for the year 2025, and that designated over 21,000 acres of lands as employment centers. So those would be for high wage job generating uses. They're all over the county, expanding the Level Diamond. We've got some southwest portion of the county, wildlife. We'll have a new interchange at 95 and just north of 200, about 2 miles north of 200. So that will open up that area as well. So we are really planning for job opportunities. one of the things that we are also doing currently, just we had a discussion with her yesterday, is we're trying to incentives ordinance. Right now we have an economic development grant that is a ad valorem tax abatement based on your number of jobs created and your capital investment made. But we're also looking at doing some type of incentive for spec buildings because that's what people want. We're also looking at an incentive for small businesses and an incentive to for tangible personal property tax. So those are things we're working on now to try to get the ball rolling. And part of the reason that we haven't been so successful bringing jobs to areas, we haven't had the infrastructure to serve those parcels. We have those available now, and we designated those lands on our growth map. They are in areas for public facilities we planted with it. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
What kind of questions do we have for Ms. Coyle?
So I sit on the TPO board, so I see the projects that are coming through on our tip. And some of those are like sidewalk projects or resurfacing projects or new roads, looking out like in the 5-year. And I know we do have pretty good engagement at the county level. Robert Companion attends the technical coordination meetings, but I just know from my exposure in the region that Nassau County, much like, you know, other rural counties, that there isn't a lot of engagement just on projects. So like FDOT publishes projects and the plans are posted on their website full of all this other information. It's very rich data, but the public doesn't really get involved until things are already built. So like the example of like 200, that plan was publicized without, you know, median plantings for a long time. Like I know because I went to those meetings and I talked with the planners and they were like, well, this is what it is. And thankfully we got, you know, the beautiful trees that are there, but it's only because of public engagement and interest that even happened. And so I'm not really posing this as a question for you to solve, but it's something that I feel like is on me as someone who goes to those meetings and sees those presentations. Like, how do we get that information in front of the public in a way that the public cares about it and engages? Because I know in Fernandina, we have businesses that sponsor the change they want to see. Like they paid for the Egan's Creek Park plantings, and businesses will sponsor the upkeep. And ultimately, the community does want to pay for the upkeep if we can get it built the way we want to see it. So I just kind of want to put that out there that I'm actively trying to like send the emails and forward the information, but I'd really like to see just something more like coordinated where like as a community that we just engage more.
I mean, I agree, and we've had really great responses through our vision planning process, but you're right. People don't typically get engaged unless it's something that personally affects them. So just getting the word out, being more transparent, just really trying to use every avenue we have to get information out. Brandy is actually trying to hire a new public information officer, or I'm sorry, communications manager. So that's an opportunity for us to better engage with the public as well. So, but thank you. I will take.
And you did a great job with the 200 the bicentennial and making it not just a party, but like every time you got the public together, you had someone there with some sort of interactive mode of gathering feedback on what we want to see in the community to change. So you guys did a terrific job, and I would just keep putting more fun projects in front of you if it were up to me. Keep solving problems. Thank you.
Okay, Holly, thanks for being here. I do want to recognize, so Holly works in the Strategic Advancement Department, so I do want to recognize the Director of Strategic Advancement, Brandy Carvalho, who's here. I'm not going to put her on the spot. Okay, I just want to make sure she didn't have anything she wanted to add. So the whole purpose of all of this really is where do we fit in as OHPA? Where do we fit in? where can we see possible revenue generation? Again, so it's not all just focused and centered around the Port of Fernandina. So leading up to this, I'd asked for everyone to really start thinking about your different priorities and your goals. So we just had just open dialogue. So if you don't really go by the agenda where tab C and D, it's all just running together. But we had a magic wand. What would we like to see? What would benefit us? I know of like a port director, a grant writer, so many different things like that that we can look at. But of course, we have the financial factor. So then, what can we do to generate additional revenue? So we can look at those types of opportunities and again ways to improve, to grow, and to do some good throughout the countywide. So I'm leaving it open. I'm looking at Commissioner Moore because since he's been on this board, he has thrown several things our way.
I don't think it's any surprise to anybody, but I believe the board is very important with what we do. But it is of a certain size, and I don't think it can get up the, even if we address all the problems and get it to maximum potential and capability, I don't think it can ever be on what I believe the legislature established OPA to do, which is to be that elected economic development arm for the county as a whole. Uh, what I would like to see is more focus on developing additional lines of business. And I know we're not there, and I don't think we've for the last many years have been there to where we've had private partnerships with that side businesses where we really stepped forward and developed these additional money-making lines of business. Even though we are in government and we're a nonprofit, there still is that expectation that we bring in revenue to cover what we do. I would like to see us move towards rapidly in that. Obviously, like I said, we're not at that point where we've done that a lot, and it's a pretty steep learning curve. I wouldn't suggest necessarily at point now. Turn into any sort of public-private partnership with a $100 million company. I think that's beyond us at this point. But I think we need to move in that direction where we're fostering job growth throughout the county, working with smaller businesses that that need a hand up, not necessarily a handout. Although obviously there's pretty much involved. But I think it's important. I think it's what the legislature established us to do. And I think because of the limitations on the board, I think it's important that we do that.
Okay. And I agree. I agree with you on that. How do we get there? Well, I mean, what's that process on getting to that point? Because we say, I think the point with this conversation, have all of these. We say this all the time. It's what we'd like to do, but again, how do we get there? And that's what we need to fully look at.
Well, you look at the other government entities, not just in the county, but the counties all around us. They have these extensive staff that effectively do the daily lift on Monday through Friday between board. Obviously, we don't have that. We need to be one of the phrases, and it's not original to me, but we need to be working commissions. I think Chairman Hill, when she was the chairman, we need to be working commissioners, and we need to be out in the community trying to develop these lines of business, talking to the business community, developing these partnerships, and really trying to step forward aggressively to develop these business opportunities. Now, obviously, like I said, I'm talking about $100 million businesses, but I would hope that, we could come up with, each few, smaller public-private partnerships where we bring certain things to the table. The other side of the, partnership, they bring a certain thing to the table, and then, we hopefully split the proceeds, but I think it's important that we as commissioners get out into the community, and I know, I'm not saying that the commissioners aren't doing that, from a business development standpoint, how can we develop these partnerships? I think the important way to do that is to get out there and talk to the people, and really try to do what they need.
So going back to what Commissioner Hill said earlier, engage more. Ultimately, it's engaging more in the community, knowing what's going on, understanding the county's vision plan, the economic development board's strategic plan, and then having those conversations. We don't need to really have those conversations just in here with a Sherry Mitchell or Holly Boyle. I mean, that's something that, even though Commissioner Cole did serve on the economic development board, I'm sure that if any one of us called Sherry and said, "Hey, can we meet?" And have that discussion. So I think, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great, engaging more is key. Hopefully, maybe that open up some opportunities.
Since we have our operator here, you all have the perspective of coming from outside and engaging with Nassau County. You know what it's like trying to find skilled labor here. You deal with a totally different workforce at your other operations. I'm just curious if you have any suggestions, or I know we've talked about like offsite operations to help support the port. Is there anything that we can touch on to help you all, or?
Yeah, I'd say, I think everyone's aware that we own one of the last industrial parcels on the island. So one of my big goals is to make that a port specific. Right now, of course, buildings in bad shape. I'm working on plans right now to develop that. But I just want to let the board know it will absolutely be committed to the board through still storage. That's my goal right now. So actually just got estimates and drawings back this week. So we started get the ball rolling there.
Is that the Friendly Road?
It is.
Okay. And, we did a signal analysis at that intersection, and there were suggested improvements, and I haven't heard an update recently on what has happened, but that was actually initiated by some of the drivers that came last year this time to receive our Maritime Day proclamation, which is really cool that they came to accept that. But just in talking with some of y'all's drivers and employees in the parking lot, they were saying that intersection is not safe and that they sit there, waiting a long time. So I'd love to follow up on that and make sure that those improvements move forward if they haven't happened already.
Is it trying to take a left out of the property? Is that wrong?
It's because you can't go back through the neighborhood.
No, yeah, I'm saying.
Yeah. Trying to take a left. It's friendly.
Yeah, we're doing substitute for 4 lane.
Correct. Yeah.
It's turning left up there. I'm guessing
That's the issue. So they had recommended some improvements just based on existing traffic, but if there's going to be any increase, then that might warrant more. I think they were looking at it as to whether or not it would warrant having a signal, like a traffic light, and they determined that improvements were needed, but not an actual signal. But we
it's like a right turn only curve.
So we actually have the warrant analysis on our website, and I pulled it up for tonight's meeting. I'll make sure you get it. Yeah.
I think,
Mr. Chairman, after spending nearly 44 years in the maritime industry, when I came in 2011 to the Port of Fernandina, the first question that I asked Kendall Morgan leadership was, why don't you advertise this place in American Shipper or some of these other maritime magazines, because they're published every month. And that's where people go to get their contacts. When I worked with P&O Nebula at P&O Containers, they were in the top 10 container lines in the world. They always had advertisements in American Shepherd. And I had a guy come out of Savannah one day and he asked me, he said, how come I never see this place advertised? This is the best kept secret on the East Coast. And today, there's no advertisement about Port Fernandina. How many articles do y'all or advertisements do y'all have in a magazine saying, "Hey, Port Fernandina is open for business"? If you don't tell people that you're active and that you're seeking new business, they're not going to find it out. This guy was out of Savannah, and he said, "You got the best kept secret. You're right here on the Atlantic Ocean. You know, in 45 minutes, you can be dockside. Why don't somebody put in, I carried that question to Kinder Morgan. Kinder Morgan said, we're the largest pipeline operator in North America. We don't need to advertise, but you're not running a pipeline here. There's no pipeline in Fernandina. So if you're not going to be serious about what you're doing, then let somebody else do it. But I'm saying you advertise, it's like the old saying, if you build it, they'll come. If people know that Port of Fernandina is a viable deep water port, somebody's got to tell them.
So I think marketing takes a lot of different issues. So I'll give you one quick example. I don't want to turn this into I just sent one of our full-time business development members, full-time job is to develop business for this port to break bulk Europe. That's a considerable investment to send somebody all the way to Rotterdam for a week to converse with the major shipping lines, especially in the break bulk forest products sector. So, I get your opinion maybe that written literature is best, but for me, it's networking. I've done that my whole career. So we'll have a significant presence at Break Bulk Americas as well, which is held usually in September. We also sent a representative to the JOC Break Bulk event in New Orleans. And so, every member of our business development staff has experience making those connections. And, I think the fruits of that are shown in the report. We saw the report last month, really good volumes. The port is pretty full right now, and we're looking for more, and we're looking to develop all for us. But I do appreciate this suggestion.
I can tell you the only time it exceeded expectations is during the pandemic because you had such a labor shortage in Houston, Galveston. Those people weren't taking vessels. We had them stacked up out here in the Atlantic. We couldn't work them fast enough. And my point is this, it was word of mouth that got those ships here because agents would call and say, hey, send them to Fernandina, send them up here. They would come out of the Gulf around through the Straits of Florida, and we had them stacked up out there. I'm talking about, and we had people calling us saying, can you take me in there? We need to get into it. We just need to get rid of this cargo.
Yeah, well,
but I'm just saying,
I
you got to let people know that you're available.
Yeah. It was terrible.
I'm just saying, if we want to be serious about what we're doing here, we got to think outside of the box. And I think that's why the chairman is having this discussion. Let's think outside of the box. A lot of times it's the simplest things.
Yes.
Advertise.
It goes, I do, something said about advertising, my real job, I do sales and marketing. But so yeah, advertising is a great tool, but there's nothing better than that face to face. And so I understand, that point as well, in that networking. I mean, that's going to get you, it's going to get you a lot further than somebody saying ads for the literature. However, I feel like it's a great mix, great combination. So Commissioner Cole, again, your thoughts. I'm just kind of going down.
I believe that we're headed in the right direction and every method everywhere. I feel like we're saturated now with relay and
of them coming on board, what their experience is, I believe that we can move ahead. And I believe we're positioned and primed to do what we need to do and to evolve.
Yeah. I agree. I think there's some great things here. I mean, great discussion. Just to kind of get everyone's perspective on where we're looking, where we're moving. I mean, I'd love to look for partnerships, whether it's with the county or the city, but seeing what we can do for them or to help them or partner with them on, projects. I think that's, there's got to be some opportunities there. And again, if we come in here in these meetings and we're just having a conversation, just, the same conversation, every meeting, but not looking at how we can advance ourselves, then we're doing this. So I think, again, working together with our partners, the county, with Economic Development Board, with the operator, I think we can get so much further ahead. But it's just, again, how do we get there? So going through all of this, I wanted to try to give, like I said, an idea, and then I'm going to put together these various ideas and then really ways to proceed. But I want to, again, just let everyone know you're welcome to, whether it's the county, the city, Sherry, Economic Development Board, meet with them to, again, have that face to face and see what we need to help, because it is all about engaging more with the business community, with the port operator, and seeing how we can certainly move forward. But I'm going to put everything together. Really trying to kind of proceed with this, process everything we talked about. But there's a lot of great dialogue, great ideas, but I don't want it to really end here. But I do want to put this together, and we can just kind of do like an overview, just, at our future meetings, and again, continue to talk about that. But let's keep having an open discussion with our partners.
I would suggest Chat GPT, that you can create an infographic
Was not going to give away our secret, but
or conduit bond financing and put that on the website. No, I think not, putting joking aside, I think having something on our website that that sort of highlights that very like front and center. There's a lot on our website, and so we've kind of gone around with this whole discussion of having an intern maybe helping us with social media and helping us with our website, but also commenting on online presence to posts that you see from the county, engaging that way virtually, which members are always welcome to engage and connect. But I think having like that virtual presence, because that's where everybody is working all day, every day. Like when you look up something online and you say, what is the economic development posture of Nassau County? The third result you get is the port. It doesn't talk about OPA specifically, but it talks about the Port of Fernandina and how it's a deep water port, that there's no bridges, that it's a naturally deep waterway. Where's that coming from? It's coming from our website. So it doesn't matter what we put out there. And I just also want to comment that we're not broken. Like Nassau County is a very healthy, thriving community. The fact that our population is going to double is really remarkable. There are plenty of communities that have the opposite problem, where they are losing residents. So we're gaining residents. We have sort of everything going our way almost to a fault. And the key is making the growth that we have coming sustainable and look the way we want it to look, and that we don't lose our sense of community along the way. Because if you have a bedroom community where people are getting in their car and driving to Jacksonville, you feel this disconnected sense. All the workers are coming from Jacksonville to work on homes on the island, and you have bottlenecks on the freeway. So I think it's about putting in place a plan that, which the county is working on, to make sure that that growth looks the way we want it to look. But I really don't think, I think Nassau County is really thriving. And if you look to our neighbors to the north, there are plenty of economic development authorities where, projects have been directly funded by the county and they're in default. And so I think perhaps we are smart to not be directly bonding private, speculative projects as aggressively, because we already have the growth. And it's just my perspective. that when you zoom out a little bit, there are plenty of publicly financed projects out there right now that are up for grabs at a deep discount because counties wagered that, things were just going to keep going up, up, up. So I think we've actually done a really good job. And a lot of people will say, well, what has the Economic Development Board really done? Well, I don't think it's the job of government to be writing checks to private individuals. And clearly we have, we do have the increase in jobs, we have the increase in population. And so I think it's just collaboration as a community and getting ready to welcome having twice as many friends we currently have, which is going to be, I mean, hang on for the ride. It's going to be, the future's coming. But you guys are all doing a great job. So thanks for coming out.
All right, any questions before we wrap it up? All right, so yes, thank you to everyone for coming out. Thank you to Hallie Toyle, Jerry Mitchell, and all of you. Anything further? Yes.
Just a reminder, I'm sorry, okay, tomorrow FDOT meeting, I do need from the operator the FDEP forms. My deadline is Friday. The US CBP grant will take in effect in July. So as soon as OPA executes that agreement, they're going to want activity on that grant. I do have a C-Hub deadline on June 17th, so I need board direction. If I don't get anything, a list of projects to enter into C-Hub for funding, do I use the one that was submitted last year? Should I?
I mean, you're looking for the grant requests that are unfunded, that's the portion
Correct.
that you have to put in. So, lacking the information, I would think that, the projects, the priorities may change, but, maybe to new, project data, think about the, what was previously in C6,
CSIP.
C7. That's the unfunded project. What would be ultimately sooner.
Okay. I just need direction of the ranking, and also we're working on the PIDP. We cannot apply for different projects, different grants, or same projects, different grants. I don't know. So I have a list of 10 projects to enter into C-Hub. Should I just enter them as I have them right now, or do you want the port operator to work?
All right, so we're gonna be on, right? So, all right, so June 17th is the deadline,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's get it, what's today? 28th, all right, so calendar, okay. All right. So, what do you think?
Would we be answering the unfunded, requirements to C-Hub, or would it be the opposite?
I would be, and certainly I could use the help. Mrs. Bach, can Commissioner Moore help me enter those projects into C-Hub?
Sure. There's nothing.
Because last year,
As long as you all, the board's here, that's it precisely, yes, he's not,
Yeah,
exercising authority, it's just, yes, understand.
no, just
Yes.
entering
It's totally fine.
information. Yeah, because last year it was me and Mr. Hale who we did an all-nighter because we had to meet the deadline. And I don't want to do that again. So I got to have the information way before June 17th.
Gotcha.
Okay, so why don't we set a deadline to get a draft done or submittal by the 11th? That gives us 1, 2, 3, 4 business days of elasticity there on the back end, which we'll make it. Does that sound reasonable?
That sounds perfect.
Rosanna, Have they provided any guidance on formatting or anything like that?
We got
Yeah.
a workshop tomorrow.
No, you just cut and paste.
Okay.
Because it's a question by question and Savage has given me the answers to those questions.
Okay.
So
So it's
it's
just.
just a matter of cut and paste. That's it.
What are? How about